Welcome everybody to episode 4 of the Association Marketing Show. Today we are joined by Cindy Simpson, the Manager of Member Services at the National Society for Histotecnology, and Natalie Paskoski, Communications Specialist, also at the National Society for Histotechnology. So to both of you, Cindy and Natalie, for our first ever dual guest episode, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yes, we're very pleased. Thank you.
Of course, happy to have you here. Could you both describe your kind of professional background, how you made it into the wonderful world of associations, as I like to call it?
Sure. So I've been with NSH for about 4.5 years. It's my first job out of college. I majored in advertising public relations. So I was not intending to go into associations, but I found the post for a project coordinator at that time on ASCE's website, and I applied, and they hired me. And so about 2 years ago, they changed my title to communications specialist. So I've taken on more of the communications aspect of the organization.
And I've been with NSH for all of a year. In fact, my anniversary date's coming up in about a week. I started in association management quite a while ago. My first job out of college was working in hotels, and then I switched over to associations, worked in a variety of trade associations and professional societies, and have had a circular route, which ended up allowing me to work here at NSH with Natalie. And I'm in charge of member services. So that means I'm in charge of all membership, recruitment, retention, working on the strategy and implementation along with Natalie in terms of marketing and communications.
Could you kind of briefly describe the overall focus for NSH and what it does and the kinds of services that it provides its members?
So we represent the individuals that are in the field of histology, and what we like to say is they're saving lives one slide at a time. So when you have a biopsy done, the individual that prepares the slide for the pathologist to read is the person that's in histology. They work in a number of different fields within the companies, pharmaceutical, biomedical, government agencies, veterinary services. They don't work just on people, they also work on animals.
Yeah, so we support them mainly by providing education. They need to maintain a certification in most cases. So we're a big provider of education for them to earn that certification, then to maintain that certification, and really a community within that professionally so that they can network and meet others and share troubleshooting techniques and things like that when they're in the lab.
We were formed in 1973. Actually, they met at an annual meeting and then decided to form the society afterwards because they realized the importance of getting together and to network amongst themselves. So we're coming up on our 50th anniversary here in a few
Congrats.
years. Thank you.
I know that many of the people listening, association marketers, people in the association world, are from small staff organizations. That is a very, very common thing. And I know there's many unique challenges that come along with that in terms of prioritization, in terms of areas of ownership, in terms of workload and all of that. And I'd love to get into some of that. But just to set the stage for that, could you talk about the size of the team and how the roles are split up?
So we have a staff of 5. We like to say we're small but mighty. We have our executive director, Sharon Kneebone, who is fabulous. She is a longtime executive director here, 5-6 years now, right, Natalie? At NSH, has been very involved in association management and is phenomenal at what she does. She oversees our governance and advocacy efforts, works a lot with our board and our House of Delegates. And then we have Aubrey Warner and Connie Wildman, who actually oversee all of our education programs. They put together our lab webinars, all of the courses that we offer for certification falls under their area of responsibility. This year, we just launched a new learning management system, and they were responsible for transferring all that content that we have into that system. That was quite a huge project. And then there's myself and Natalie, and that's it. We all work very closely together, though, for the betterment of the organization. And we meet weekly directly to talk about issues that come up, as well as opportunities to further the needs of the association.
Marketing now happens in more places than it ever has before. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, before I was really in the industry as a marketer, and then before that, really there was a handful of channels. You could be super specialized in those handful of channels, and that was the mix, right? That was the marketing mix. But today there's so much marketing technology, there's so many digital marketing channels, there's so many ways to use those channels. If you think about like email, for an example, email doesn't just mean email blasts anymore. It might mean automated emails and, behavioral triggered emails and segmentation and personalization and split testing. And so even within individual channels, there's been so much complexity that's emerged. So I'm wondering, one, how you have attempted to keep up with the changing landscape of marketing and digital marketing and marketing tech, how you've picked the right few things to focus on and really master that make a difference for your organization and for your audience, and what that lineup looks like today of the key channels and key tools that you use to power your marketing programs.
We mentioned a lot of things that we do within our email. So our email probably is still like our biggest channel that we're using, but we have really focused recently on making that more targeted. So we recently changed our AMS so that we would be able to integrate our new learning management system with the AMS, so we could really pull in more of that behavioral data, because we had a lot of data previously that was all living in different places, and it was hard to really pull those targeted lists to make that kind of marketing push. So we've just done that in the last year. So we've really been focusing on those targeted lists, and then within that as well, retargeting, both on Feathr, which I'll talk about in a minute, and then our email as well. So we're using Real Magnet for our email marketing, which we decided to do specifically because we wanted that automation capabilities.
Yeah.
And so they have the function where you can set up a link label to like label all of the links within a campaign, so that anyone who clicks on any of the links, you can put them into another retargeting campaign and then continue follow up with them. So that's something that we found a lot of success with when we were marketing our annual convention that went virtual this year.
Yeah.
We were able to offer specific burst sales. We did a Labor Day sale to people who had engaged with us, who hadn't completed the registration yet, to really kind of re-engage those people that we already knew had engaged with us. On that note as well, we are using Feathr for our digital marketing. And so that's relatively new for us. We had a consultant who was doing some Facebook ads for us, but we decided to bring all of our social media, organic and paid, in-house last year.
Okay.
And that's when we decided that we kind of needed a tool that would simplify things a little bit for us, because I'm not an expert in Facebook Ads Manager. I didn't have that experience. So it made it a little more manageable to use a tool like Feathr that kind of simplifies that campaign creation process. So that's another thing that we've been doing retargeting with. Retargeting segments who have visited specific pages of our website. We'll target them with that education that they've been browsing.
Yeah.
To follow up with them.
So you mentioned integrating your learning management system and your email marketing vendor. So is that so that you can see on your contact records in your email marketing platform, which is Real Magnet, you can see which content they've consumed, and use that to inform segmentation and then to do further email marketing based upon that behavior? Is that basically the idea?
In a roundabout way. So it's integrated with the AMS. So
Gotcha.
Whatever they purchase through the LMS shows up on their AMS membership record.
Gotcha.
So that we can make a targeted list within our, like a query within our AMS that then we'll pull into Real Magnet.
And do some promotions around.
Right.
Gotcha. How has that been going? I know it's early days, kind of a year into that process, but have you noticed an improvement in email performance based upon that kind of targeting?
Yeah. So we talked about pivoting with COVID. Right when COVID started, we made these packages, education packages, specifically to get to people who needed CEUs, who were laid off, who had a little bit of time. So we were promoting these packages, And we based that on past purchases, to what we were going to put in those packages, and then who we were going to target them to.
Great.
And so we found those packages to be extremely successful because they were targeted. And we'll do that with our lab webinars as well. So there's a variety of different topics in that series. But there's, say, 1 month is on IHC education. We'll pull a list of people who have recently taken a webinar in IHC, and we'll send it specifically for that month. We'll promote it to those people. So we have found that does increase our attendance and open rates and overall sales.
You said retargeting 101 is just that. Retarget anybody who comes with ads forever, basically. But I'm curious, because you've mentioned some more kind of segmented, nuanced ways of using retargeting. Could you expand on that a little bit in terms of the main types of retargeting campaigns that you've used and how you've targeted the segmenting on that? And what you've seen in terms of those campaigns performing.
Sure, yeah. So we do make it a little more specific than just our entire site. We have different pages within our website for all the different programs that we offer. So we'll specifically use just that URL from that one web page. If they're interested in HT certification, we'll just use that specific web page when we target someone with our HT prep course. So we've kind of narrowed it down in that way. So because we're also sometimes we'll be running a campaign for education, a campaign for membership at the same time. So we don't want to bombard them with ads either. But we have also used just like the typical, what you would think of as a funnel approach to marketing. When we were running our ads through Facebook Ads Manager, we would set up like a lookalike list to our Facebook audience that we were promoting just non-conversion content, just like things like our blog that they would engage with. And then once they engage with that content, they would be put into the middle tier funnel of, we'll promote this $10 webinar. And then so retargeting based on that or what they've already done within other campaigns as well.
Right. And then once somebody comes in for a webinar, maybe they're a good candidate for getting a special offer for membership or for an event of some kind, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's great. I'm so glad to hear you bring up the idea of the marketing funnel and its application in digital advertising. That's something that we've done multiple webinars on and really encourage our customers to think about is having multiple campaigns running with different goals, right? That end up in the same place, which is some central goal, like getting an event registrant or getting a new member. But the way to get new members from a marketing standpoint is not just to run campaigns promoting some kind of special on membership. It's to do the whole set. It's to drive net new awareness to people who are in market for you, but with lightweight content, things that are easy to engage with, things that are easy to say yes to, like you're saying, like an ungated blog article or for something like that. And then once somebody does that, they one step deeper. Now a webinar, now a paid webinar, now, a virtual event, then a live event, then the membership or something like that. You have your series of offers, and as people are coming through, getting a little bit more familiar with you, then they move into the next kind of arena of promotion where they start seeing ads and maybe promotional emails for, the next level of commitment from where they're at right now.
We talked about the blog. That's one of our major ways that we get in new prospects. Like 40% of our subscribers we didn't have in our database before they subscribed. So we're not going to immediately hit them with, hey, join us. We'll promote more content that is similar to the blog. Hey, you might like this, and work them through that funnel via email as well.
You had described one of the ways that you have evolved the membership model for NSH. And so could you talk about that a little bit, maybe the thinking behind that, how you chose to develop that new tier of membership for your organization, and then how it's gone since it's been rolled out?
Sure. So a few years ago, we did a survey of our members. We hired an outside firm to interview our members. They did focus groups. They interviewed members, lapsed members, prospective members to find out what it is that they needed from us and in order to achieve their goals in histology. And Our members are very cost conscious, as we all are nowadays, especially, and they repeatedly had told us that education was extremely important to them, and that's been borne out by the data and the analytics that Natalie sees when she focuses on the communications and marketing for education. We get phenomenal response rates, and so there was discussion about how we could capitalize on that, and we developed in concert with the board of directors approved this, and we launched just in October of this year a new model that combined membership with unlimited access to our library of histology focused on demand webinars. And we've been marketing that through various channels. Natalie's done a phenomenal job in pushing out that message, and I have to say that I was very cautious in my projections for the first year, and we are very close for the first year, and I'm talking about through the end of 2021. Right now, we're very close to almost meeting those projections, and so we are going to be exceeding those projections, and we're just thrilled. There's definitely a need out there for our members in particular, and those that are in the field of histology, to be able to access education, and the fact that it comes with a year's worth of membership, so they have all of the other benefits of membership combined, is really proven to be a win-win for all of us, and we're just beyond happy.
Well, I mean, you already mentioned some of the channels we got. So we basically laid out when we were going to start the email campaigns. So we started it October 1st, since that's when we would usually start our renewals and recruitment. So we decided that it was going to launch October 1st, and our conference was actually the middle of October. So we kind of also tied it in a little bit with that promotion as well, where there would be overlap between those groups who wanted that education. So we laid out the email campaigns for it, which were segmented by their likely interest in the upgrade. So we basically said, these people, we know they're certified, so they're more likely to be interested. They've attended these things, so we know they're going to be interested. So we kind of laid out 5 different groups within just our renewals that we wanted to target, and did the same kind of thing for our lapsed and non-members, and planned out those email campaigns to them throughout October. And then we, like she said, we did a postcard mailing to them as well. And we've now just started phone calls. And in November, we've moved our email campaigns into a retargeting process of anyone who engaged in the first month of emails is put into a different campaign than those who didn't engage with our October emails. So that's kind of how we've laid out that flow for the past 2 months of our promotion of it. But we are running digital ads as well. We've been doing posts organically on our social media as well. So hitting all of those channels.
Awesome. Great. So social has come up a couple of times. I'm curious which social platforms are the most effective for you and which ones you're kind of really dedicated to. Yeah.
So we brought all of our social media in-house. We had a consultant who was doing it, and we decided that we wanted to bring it in-house just to have a little more control over the content and make sure it was really resonating with our members. Since we know what histology is, it's a little easier for us to create those posts than it would be for a consultant who's necessarily not dealing with it day in and day out. So we decided that we were going to go with Agorapulse as our social scheduling tool. And though we are on all of the channels, we really focus primarily on Facebook and Instagram. We found that's more where our audience is. Our membership does tend a little bit older, and they are on Facebook, but we do have a growing population of students and younger new professionals who are on Instagram as well. So that's where we lend our focus. In histology, it's kind of weird to think about that your tissue would actually be pretty, but they stain it with ink, and it's a very visual science. So it lends itself pretty well to those visual platforms, more so than Twitter or LinkedIn. That photo content and video content really works really well for us with that visual art form. So
maybe better than other healthcare professions, huh?
Right. Yes.
Like knee repair is like, okay, maybe not the best
not
visual.
as pretty, but no, we actually run an art of the stain contest, so people will submit their stains, and some of them are absolutely gorgeous, which is weird to think, that's someone's liver, but
super cool. That's super cool. obviously we believe in podcasting. That's why we're doing this podcast here today. But I was super interested when you described how long you've been doing it, and that you've really made it kind of a key investment in one of your content pillars for NSH. So I'm just kind of curious around the background for it, why you decided to do it.
Sure, yeah. So we started it in 2016. It was actually Connie's idea, our other education coworker. And we started it originally to do interviews with our poster presenters at our convention, because they had this great scientific content that could easily be condensed down into a 15-minute talk, and we needed somewhere to kind of put that content. And so that's how we kind of decided to get into podcasting. And one of the benefits of being a small staff association, we didn't have to go through 10 layers of approval. We kind of said, well, we're here, let's get it done. And so we did. And we're using Podbean for it, but we don't have any fancy equipment like you do, but we really just, most of it is through Zoom. And so we've kind of expanded that over the years to take on these other kind of mini series within Histotalks is the broad name for it. But we've also done series with our with our award winners, our scholarship winners. So they'll sometimes use the funds for different projects abroad. So we've done interviews with them. We've done troubleshooting series where they share some tips and tricks and stuff like that. So there's mini series within our whole series. And so mainly it really is just a way for us to kind of break down our larger content into smaller digestible bits that we can feed out to non-members and without that wall of having to be a member to pay for the content. Just like our blog, we'll use those kind of things in our lower level funnels.
Yeah. That's, how many episodes have you done?
So we have, I think 106. I was looking at that before we got on. It's like 106 now.
Okay.
And we have 16,800 downloads.
Wow. I'm a huge fan of content repurposing. It takes so much work to make a new piece of content that it's such a huge shame when it just gets like one or two email promotions and then gets archived somewhere on the website. Like, you know, that like kills whatever part of my soul is dedicated to marketing. It like kills that part of my soul. And so you've talked about this idea of repurposing content onto the podcast, which is a great idea. But I'm curious, just in terms of the mix of the different types of content that you publish to the podcast and how you've changed it up over time and had little seasons or little series, just to give listeners examples of ways that they can populate a podcast stream. Because I think for a lot of people, yes, it sounds like a good idea, but oh man, that's a whole new channel that we now have to produce content for, and that sounds like a big lift. And it certainly is work, but I would love for you to kind of contribute some ideas about how you've populated and built out those 106 episodes, to give some encouragement to people listening and some more specific ideas for them to act on.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you do need people willing to be interviewed, but generally we do a lot of webinars too. So we generally have people who are already going to be recording content for us. So even not necessarily with our podcast, but we'll do like little learn it in a minute where it's just a minute video from the webinar. So it's just things like that where you have people who are already interested and they already have a topic, just breaking that down even further into a little snippet from that topic.
Yeah.
And then, so like I mentioned, some of the series were with our award winners. These are already people who were very engaged. And that were interested in doing it.
Right.
But we've also done special like themed series. We did a Women in Histology series for Women's Month one year.
Right.
And so that was based on our demographics of our association. We're 70% women, which is not as likely in the STEM fields. So just thinking about things like that your association can specialize in.
We also this year have really been pushing micro volunteering opportunities. And so we reached out to our members to ask if they'd be interested in being interviewed for a podcast, because our members work, as I mentioned, in a variety of places. And so it's very interesting to hear their stories. And so we've had members that have taken us up on that and have reached out to Natalie to ask if she'd be willing to interview them. So I do think that's another important important point is to offer those opportunities to your members as a way to get involved, and especially your newer members, because they may not know what they want to do in terms of engagement, and so it's a great opportunity for them as well.
Obviously, even before the pandemic, time online has been going up every year, adult time online. I think in 2019, the average adult in the US was spending 7 hours a day online. And so the prominence and importance of digital marketing has increased along with that. But the pandemic has, I think, further accelerated that shift, at least temporarily, where people are spending even more on time online, whether that's on computers for work and then, for leisure afterwards. And so I'm curious if that's led to any changes within kind of your marketing setup or your marketing budget distribution, and just in general for the organization, what kind of adjustments that's created for you.
Yeah, well, we already actually were working from home for the past few years, so organizationally, there was not a lot that we had to change. But we did see a lot of our members being furloughed as elective surgeries were stopped in March. And we did see initially a change in our open rates. So for our monthly newsletter, e-newsletter that we sent out in March, because we sent it out at the beginning of the month, so March, right before everything hit, our open rate was about 29%. The next month, it was around 36%. Yeah. And that stayed true for the next 3 or so months until people started to go back. Like July, it dropped back around to 29%.
Yeah.
We were seeing some of that lift in open rates for emails and engagement with emails that other people were seeing as well. But we did also, being a science field, we had people who were writing articles, and we had some resources that we were producing about the coronavirus. So we had set up a page on our website, and we ended up doing a keyword campaign in Feathr that was for histology, for people searching coronavirus and histology. And we were running ads for that. And so it was directing them back to our site, which then we could retarget them with other things once they're in that Feathr sphere there.
Well, we started a new series called Slide into NSH, where starting in August, it was a monthly session where we did a very brief overview about NSH. And then we allowed the members that participated in that session to hear from each other and to share their questions, and as a way to facilitate conversations and discussions. And that's been going very well. We're actually now, because that's been going so well, we're thinking about transitioning to maybe some type of a virtual happy hour starting in January of next year, where we'll do, some type of a theme, and then we'll bring everybody together as another way to network in a virtual environment. We saw that that actually was very prominent in our convention, which just ended last month, where we had different events in the evening, and our members and participants, they just couldn't get enough, because they really clamored for that human interaction, even if it's just face-to-face over a virtual setting.
For many associations, that is one of the key challenges, if not the key challenge. It's building awareness within their audience and within their market. Whether, the goal eventually is to, increase the number of members, or to increase event registrations, or increase participation in paid educational programs. Any variety of ending goals, that all starts with building awareness with the audience that you care about. And so I'm curious how NSH and you two specifically are tackling that problem, whether that's from a marketing standpoint or a partnership standpoint. I know it can be a multi-pronged approach in terms of getting the word out there and building awareness in your target audience. But I'm curious how the organization is kind of tackling that problem.
So we had touched on it a little bit briefly. We had some things like our blog that we were using to get in brand new people. And we also have our CE tracker, so people can create an account with us just to track their continuing education. So that's a big way that we get people into our database, and they're also logging information in there that we can use to find out what they're interested in. So we are a continuing education approver for other organizations like the state societies, even though they're not necessarily a part of us, and other companies that provide education. So then people can create an account with NSH, a free account, just to log that hours so that they can report that back to the AICP. So that's a big way of how we build our database and how we find out what people are interested in.
Gotcha.
Just having them create accounts that way.
Yeah. And on the blog, how are people finding the blog? Is it mostly through SEO? Do you have certain standout, pieces of content on the blog or sections of the blog that rank really well for certain, industry related searches?
Yeah, so we've actually found that how to get certified in histology is one of the biggest things that they're searching for. We have done a lot of FAQs on topics like that for people who are just getting into the field and finding out the different routes to certification and how they can get involved with histology.
Yeah.
So we have done topics like that as well. And we do have a histology professionals Facebook page that the company sponsors, but it's not our company page. So it's a group that anyone can join who's interested in histology. So people will post things in there as well. So we kind of take topic ideas out of there for us to write on our blog as well. To find out, get a pulse on the market a little bit of what people are asking.
Right. And that includes members, non-members. That's just like an industry page.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Have you done any like formal SEO, like working with an agency or like doing some kind of in-depth optimization, or just like the content is good, it's ranking on its own? Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. We use Wix for our blog, so I mean we fill in their like steps to SEO, but we haven't really like worked with a SEO professional or anything like that.
Yeah. The nice thing about SEO is that Google is intentionally trying to make it less and less technical. Like if the content is good, it should rank for the keywords and the questions that people are searching that it helps to answer, right? And taking the burden off of the content professionals to like do some kind of second level of technical SEO to get their content to rank. It's like, no, this is just good content. Let that be enough. And Google is going in that direction, and it's becoming less and less some kind of, back end optimization process for trying to get your content to rank. And so that's nice. And I imagine that your association's domain has been registered for more than a decade, maybe decades at this point, and has really good domain authority. If you could go back in time to meet yourself at the beginning of your career, and especially within the association world, what advice would you give yourself if you were able to do that? So let's start with Cindy and then go to Natalie.
Let's see. I've had such a varied career. If I were going to go back in time, one of the things that I would tell myself is to be confident. I think that for women especially, and I know there are men out there as well, but to be confident in your abilities, know that the mistakes that you will be making are really lessons that you can learn along the way, and to realize that no one is perfect. Perfection is actually something to not be desired. It's the killer of innovation. And so be willing to take those chances, be confident in your abilities, and you will be successful no matter what you do.
Love that. Thank you.
Well, you stole mine. That was going to be mine as well. Well, specifically, I've only been in the field 4.5 years. So NSH was nice enough to take a chance to hire me when I just wanted anyone to hire me. But coming into a very small staff, and they were all a lot older than I was. And so just knowing that it was okay to speak up and talk about what I knew, when I felt like I should defer to others because they knew more than I did. They've been in the field a lot longer. But just being confident to talk about your ideas and contribute.
If you had a magic wand and could solve any professional problem for yourself with a simple flick of the wrist, and that problem was not, so one exception, the problem is not budget. You can't just wish for unlimited budget.
What I would really like to see, and I know it's being developed out there, is a database that is completely comprehensive. So you don't have to go out and use a third-party email system. You don't have to go out and use another event system. That the database is comprehensive and can provide to you information about your members from the very beginning until the very end, so that when you're creating your personas and your journey mapping, which we will be doing next year. We've already done the personas. We're working on journey mapping next year. You have a really good understanding and a complete picture of the member. And so right now, all of that information resides in various locations, which means some manual, machinations, which is okay. But that would be my fervent wish. And I'm sure that, maybe not in my lifetime, but at some point we're going to see something like that happen. If I were somebody that had those skills, trust me, I'd be working on that right now.
Oh, man. That's such an exciting vision, I swear. I know, like, for some people, they're like, nerds. But, like, I'm a technologist in some ways, and obviously working for a technology company in Feathr. And so hearing that makes me super excited. It's like, if you could see somebody's like website behavior and like marketing activity behavior, as well as their membership related history in terms of, membership length and when they've lapsed and when they've renewed, as well as like educational participation from like an LMS platform, as well as event participation from like an event platform, and see all of those things. Oh,
right,
man.
What communications are opening up, what emails are resonating with them, what do they like, what don't they like, and having all that map, that would be phenomenal. So that would be my fervent wish if I had a magic wand.
I think mine would just be getting the data to reflect the success of the marketing as well as our sales do, because we know some of the stuff that we're doing is working, but it's hard to necessarily pinpoint sometimes why it's working or where the people are coming from, or counting the conversions correctly. Just getting the real data sometimes that you have to present to people higher ups to get them to understand that things are working and make the budget decisions. Kind of hard to tell sometimes why things are working. So getting the magical data to line up with the results that we're getting.
Cindy and Natalie, thank you both so much for the time today. Our first ever dual guest episode of the Association Marketing Show, as I said at the intro, and I think it's been a smashing success. So thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching the Association Marketing Show. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more content like this, and click the little notification bell to make sure you stay in the loop when the next episode drops. I'll see you on the next one.